So, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us again for another episode. Today's topic is going to be suicide. And, we actually have a lot of spirits in our little spirit posse that have experience with suicide, unfortunately.
One of them, of course, is my biggest guide that I work with the most. As a lot of you know, I also am a channeling Eric medium. Okay, so that's channeling Eric with a K.com. Or you can go on YouTube and check out, they have like over 1,000 videos. And actually I am going to bring up Eric in this video.
Okay.
Okay, if that's all right.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I can
because
actually start with him. I
yeah,
want to ask him his experience of committing suicide.
you think that you're getting out of it. You think that you just want it to stop. You think you want your brain to just, he's talking right now. This is his words. He's saying you think you want your brain to just stop functioning, and you do, and you mean it. You want it to stop. You want the chaos to stop. You want the sadness to stop. He's saying you want the confusion to stop. You want all the voices to stop. He's saying the problem is that as soon as you cross, there becomes this, like, he's snapping his fingers about reality and about what reality actually is. So all those problems that you're having, they actually don't just go away. It's not like they're gone, because they're not. It's actually even exacerbated, because now you're seeing not only your perspective of what's happening in that moment and that chaos of it happening, but you're also seeing other people's reactions and other people's feelings towards your death, and you're seeing and you're feeling what they're going through and what they're thinking. And if you're thinking that people just don't care, he's saying you'll be shocked, amazed, and just surprised by the ripple effect that you will experience in spirit, he says, by your choice. So whether it was somebody that barely knew you or somebody that was closest to you, he's saying you can't just reach out your arms and say, I'm still here. It's okay. I'm fine. You can't console them how you humanly would console them. That interaction and that touch, he says, was the hardest thing for him to not be able to experience when his family was going through this roaring, horrible atrocity. He couldn't hug his mom. He couldn't hug his family. He couldn't hug, um, the people that were there that walked in and saw what he had done. And then he couldn't, the whole experience of the reaction, he says it's very surreal. uh and everybody reacts differently. He says everybody reacts differently. For him, yes, it was a soul contract thing, and his mom knows that. That was his out. For other people that commit suicide, it's not always they're in their soul contract, and it's not always they're out, and it's not always meant to be. And they, throughout the course of time, I'm just listening to him and repeating it. He's saying throughout the course of time, you think time is linear. It's not, but you have all these different places that you can have your out. And he's saying that it's very, you're brought up into a belief structure that it's very degrading to make that choice. He's saying it's all a choice, people. It's all a choice. And it's very, he's saying, limiting for yourself and for your mind to believe that your only option is to not be here, because you don't know your potential. We see, he says, on the other side, your potential. And when you're not here anymore, you'll see how the outcome could have gone. And then that feeling you get in spirit of, oh my gosh, like this would have moved on, because time does on earth occur. And as time moves on, so doesn't change. And with time and change comes opportunity. And you just never know how you affect people with making that decision. Um, he's referring to there's all different kinds of suicides. And one of them is obvious intent. And then another one is a more accidental approach of hoping. And then it actually happens. And then you're like, oh shit, I did it for real. And this is where actually my stepdaughter Dakota is stepping in here. As she aged and she grew, I'm channeling with her right now, and she's telling her story. She's saying as she aged and as she grew, it became more apparent how much she felt like she didn't fit in, and she didn't know where her group was and her society was, and she wasn't looking for a group. She's saying, but as any normal teenage girl or just young woman, you want to figure out where you fit and how you fit, where your sexuality lies, where your dreams will be, where you can go with things. And she's saying you can't help compare yourself. And she's saying also you can't help but blame yourself. She's saying that she had an easier time blaming herself than other people. Her mom had passed. Danny, her mom's name is Danny, who is like my best friend in the whole world. She had passed almost exactly a year before Dakota did. And their relationship was not the best before Dakota's mom passed. She's saying that played obvious effect into escalating my suicidal ideations.
Can she describe how she felt when she realized that she was dead?
Yeah. So she's telling me again the story that she already had told me, because obviously that's what I wanted to know from her. So first off, when she went to sleep, she had taken something, and it was this is the part that's confusing, because sometimes I get that it was a combo thing from her, and other times it's not such a combo thing. So I'm not really actually quite accurate about that. I'm not 100% sure. I'm sure the autopsy report will come out eventually and it'll say. But she's saying she went to sleep and it's like she just woke up and she rolled over and her mom was sitting on her bed, and it was very real, very real. And her first feeling was obvious excitement, obvious mom, but then it was like, is this a dream? Like, what is this? I can touch you, I can feel you, you're you, and you're younger, and you look healthy, and what? And her mom immediately was very calm and very loving and happy to see her, and had to tell her when she woke up that she had now crossed over. And the first thing that she said to her was, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And Dakota was very much like, well, what are you talking about? And so that's when her grandparents, who had also had previously deceased also, were standing behind her mom, and she freaked out. She did. She freaked out. She looked down and saw herself. She sat up, but like it was her soul sitting up, but like she saw herself laying down. And her first immediate thought was, oh my gosh, like Nana's gonna see me. Like this is how, what did I just do? What do I do? So she was honestly very, 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 very upset about, oh my gosh, like what is happening? What did I do? Is this for real? Can I go back? Like, did I really want this? And Danny her mom was very, just held her so tight, and she was crying and crying, and she was standing in her room, and nobody had found her yet. And she was crying and crying, and her mom was just holding her and telling her, "It's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this."
Was there any regret at that point?
It was a huge amount of confusion, a
Mm.
huge amount of sadness, a huge amount of just the regret thing. Yes, regret because of the people. She never wanted to hurt anybody. She never wanted to hurt anybody. And she said that she could only dream of kind of the idea and the thought process of not having to deal with life anymore. But then when it actually happens, she's saying it's a whole different, she says it's a whole different fucking ballgame. Like when it's actually like real.
What's wrong with it? It sounds like great. I mean, we talk about heaven a lot on this channel, and it sounds like amazing. So what was it that was wrong?
Okay, so she's saying what was wrong was that she could have gone different ways. She could have led different paths. When she was brought to, um, a lot of people that go through traumatic events like suicide and things, in the afterlife, they have their life review and they get a whole 360 of their whole life and replay it out and their decisions and how those decisions affected other people. They see everybody as they find out. They go to their funeral, and then they go through schooling, like counseling, they go through classes. And so what was so wrong with it was learning that there was actually so many alternative futures that were in front of her, that because of her mind frame and where she was at the moment, she couldn't see that. She couldn't see. She said that she could only see her limitations. She couldn't see her and what she made up as boundaries, with people, with decisions, with, she's saying, with circumstances that were beyond my control. She's saying I took it as if it was in my control. And so, and hindsight, she says, like 2020, it's just, you look at it and you look at how things could have gone for me. And she says, she says, I understand why I was at where I was at mentally. She's saying, but as it being an option, she's like, I feel like I would still rather be there and had gotten to live my life because, um, lots of reasons. She's saying there was a lot of things she really did want to do. She wanted to be able to progress and make her own choices and live her life, the best, longer than she could.
When we talk to spirits, they say a lot of the times that it's not just about you, it's not just about me. So is that part of the reason why suicide is not the best option, because you are affecting so many of your loved ones?
You're not just affecting your loved ones, you're affecting the collective, because we come into this world. My guide is stepping back in and talking. He's saying we come into this world with the soul contracts and agreements with each other, that we're going to play out these roles and these lessons with each other. And then we realize how, like, after we pass, how we've affected each other and what those goals were and what those purposes were.
So
Um,
what's the biggest lesson for spirits that, usually commit suicide? What's the biggest lesson?
she's telling me this is my favorite thing that she ever said to me, that was just so, she said, it blew her mind. And her biggest lesson was how many guides we have and angels and ancestors and loved ones on the other side that are helping us every single day. When we think we're alone, we're not alone. And when we're having those moments of just total tragedy and chaos, we really do have so much support from the other side of the veil. And you would think of the veil as this faraway land, far, far away beyond space, but it's actually right here. It's right with us. And so it's living around us. And it is us in a sense, but it's what we can't see. So it's like she's showing me right now a play, and she's showing me the people on the stage, but all the preparation that goes into a play and that goes into theater. You have your stage cues, you have your directors, you have the other people that have auditioned for the part, you have sub characters. She's saying you have the stage crew that builds and constructs the entire set, and you all have an agreement to play these parts with each other in this play. She's saying that's a very good example. And then you have this great big audience watching you, and they take something from that. So they take something from the play of your life. And to know that, she said for her that she had the support, she had the ability to be able to just construct a different reality for herself. It was to know that she limited herself was the biggest slap in the face to herself she could have ever gotten. And then also just the pain that her family, like when they found her, and having to feel their emotions and see their emotions. And a friend of mine's brother is stepping in right now. Okay. He wants to communicate.
Yeah, sure.
His mom actually just passed recently too. So he is actually bringing up when he committed suicide. He was in a relationship, and his relationship got really toxic, and he got drunk, really, really drunk, and he went out into the shed and hung himself. So it wasn't a pre-planned thing. He's saying that he didn't have suicidal ideation. And he's saying, a matter of fact, I would have made fun of the people that did something like that, but he did. So for him, that was not in his contract. And it was an exit point, but it was not supposed to be. So that transition for him, he's saying at first was just, it was incredibly hard because he just wanted to take it back so bad. And I don't feel like I haven't channeled a suicide that they don't want to take it back. That's never happened. I've never come across that. Maybe other mediums have, but I haven't. It's never better on the other side, he says, because when it comes to making the decision, and then when you see that it didn't have to be that decision, and how you have affected people and how you've affected yourself, and now this is permanent. He says it's a very permanent solution for a very temporary problem. And we don't look at it, he says, as humans as temporary because it can be so consuming. But for him in his circumstance, his real issue was drinking too much and getting stupid, he's saying. He's like, I really wish I could have just like lit something on fire versus, like go and hang myself.
Is the purpose of life kind of just to live it and stick around and see what potentials your life holds? Is that the point? Is that why it's bad to leave?
Another one of my friends is coming in. He actually passed away from a brain tumor, from brain cancer. And obviously not a suicide. But he's saying that the point of life is to live it in the moments, to live it, to watch it, to breathe it, to feel it, to take it for what it is. And he says also learning to leave it for what it is. He didn't have choices in his exit. He had limitations on his choices for exit. And that was also, upsetting for him. Okay, so one of my Eric, he's stepping in. He's saying, a death is a death is a death is a death. So whether you pass from suicide at your own hands, whether it's an accident, whether you're a 90-year-old woman sleeping in your bed and pass, it's still just a death is a death is a death is a death. So nothing negative, like you're not going to go down to fire and brimstone. Like I was brought up to believe in my faith. It's more dealing with the conclusion and the end period of your life and seeing the 360 and feeling the 360 and seeing the lessons that came of it from for other people are coming for it from other people, how it came for yourself, because you look at this blueprint of your life and all these paths that it could have led down, because we have free will and trajectories can change. And so he's definitely saying, that it's not an option, because you never know for sure, because we're human, what exactly is going to happen. It can just change. He's using me as an example, actually. He wants me to bring up me, if that's okay. I actually had, I think my first suicide attempt was when I was 13. I had severe suicidal ideation. I didn't tell anybody. I wrote a letter in my journal and I took an entire bottle of pills and I went to sleep. I was 13, and that's how serious I was about that. And then I spent the next like 20 plus years still half in, half out, half not understanding myself, half not understanding anything and not wanting to. It was just like fly by night. And I guess I'll do this. I guess I'll do that. And so Eric wanted me to bring that up. He's saying, because if I had made those decisions and if it had gone through how it could have gone through, which it could have gone through, he's saying I wouldn't be where I am now, which I'm hoping to influence people in a positive way. And I'm not just talking like on YouTube. I'm not just talking through Zoom. I'm not just talking through whatever. I'm talking through just my own immediate family members and how they've seen me go through rough stuff. They don't know all these things about me. They don't know, how deep like my suicidal ideation ran. Part of it is that I was so empathic. He is actually saying that. He's saying, Abbie, you're so empathic. I just was feeling so much and I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't get away from feelings that were not mine. There were other people's feelings, but then I was like compounding my feelings on top of that, and dealing with toxic situations with family. And so he's saying that I never quite gave myself a break because I was always just so consumed in people pleasing and trying to avoid chaos. And I really took everything as my fault. So he's saying a big part of this for you people is forgiving yourself and understanding that time does have a way of progression. And with progression can come change. And with change, you never know what's around the corner or what's around the bend that can make things better. He says it's easier for people to think more negatively than positively. He's saying it's easier for you to say the bad things about yourself than the good things about yourself. Now he's also bringing up, and he's showing me some imagery right now of some YouTubes that I've seen, actually even most recently, hospice nurses and people that are absolutely, that is their diagnosed, like they're going to die. That is it, and their option to be able to choose. And in hospice, they call it the nurse's dose to help them relax so that way they can pass peacefully. He's saying that that's just different altogether. He's saying that thank God we have that choice. He's saying that there's a way to go through it gracefully and respectfully for your own self. And there's a way to go through it that is just pure chaos and tragic and sad. So ultimately, it's always your choice. He's saying that the natural option is to exist in your best light, in your best way. And life is meant to be lived. Life is meant to be tolerated. That's part of the agreement of coming here. And some souls are just like, I can't do this. Like, I'm out. We have souls that are star seeds from other planets that are just like, I don't get this earth thing. And they can't do it,
I like
chemical.
what he said there. I like that he said life is to be tolerated, because a lot of times they say, oh, life is to be enjoyed. And some people just can't enjoy it, me included. So that whole thing about just tolerate it, and maybe sometimes it's okay. I like that.
I have no idea what I just said. So this is one of the things I'm gonna have to watch it back, because I told you when I'm channeling, I'm like, I'm
Just
literally
tell him I
translating.
liked it.
It comes out and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. For Dakota, she's talking again. She's so sweet. She's so cute. She is happy. Okay. It's not that she's unhappy. It's just that, and this for her also was a soul contract plan for her exit point, which I hate. But she's saying that wasn't my choice. Like, that was her choice. For her, it was just meant to be. And it still was very hard, though. It still was very hard. She's saying, like, it doesn't feel good to see the whole situation in front of you. And then you're walked away from it.
I want to bring in another perspective on this, if you don't mind. And I want to ask my dad to step in. He didn't die by suicide, but his son died by suicide. So it's almost the other side of the coin.
So your dad still feels very upset to talk about it, the experience of the moment of what that felt like for him, because he's saying I'm starting to get like heavy, crushing failure, like not that his son was a failure, but he was a failure as a parent. He says, you can't help for it to change you. You can't help for it never really heals you on the other side of it as a parent. And then there's grief, which comes in waves, and there's always questions. And that's, for him, what drove him the most crazy out of the whole situation was all the questions that he had, any question you could imagine coming up in his mind forever, until he crossed about his son. And he said that he became a very hateful person in some ways towards himself and other people. Your dad's actually bringing up how the lack of trust was affected for him with other people. The boundaries that he would put up with other people, the walls, it just was so incredibly awful just for your dad. I mean, as you can imagine, like, do you remember this?
I wasn't alive when this happened.
So your dad is talking right now, and he's bringing up when he crossed where his frequency was at and his vibration was not at the same dimensional plane as his son that had committed suicide where he was. Now, that had happened, he's saying, a long time ago, after, before your dad had crossed. That was like years and years. So your son had, time doesn't exist in heaven and stuff, but he had already come to a place of peace, which took time. The heaven time. But he wasn't that, like, able to be in the same place as his son right away. He could see him, he could be with him, but it was like they were kind of still in two different places, like he was a more evolved spirit. He had more energy. He was a more higher frequency, more higher. That's some great verbiage right there.
That's okay.
Much higher frequency when your dad first crossed. Okay, so he was still holding very much onto the ego, the human ego, where his son had already let all of that humanness go. He's saying that he's showing me just like all these clips of people right now. Like, there's video playing out in my mind of different people in the world with these thoughts and sitting there on the edge of their bed or looking over water, or if I just, and that would be that. And it's just not like what you think. It's not. It's that is the reality, is the death, and now you're gone, and now you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe you don't know what's going to happen in life, but like how you're going to fix this scenario, how you're going to feel better. You get really bad news. Like, how are you going to fix that? Like, let's talk about Robin Williams for a second. Your dad's bringing him up,
Yeah.
he's saying with Robin, he's saying it was very, he wanted to take it into his own hands because he wanted the control of it, because he knew he was going to go through this. He knew he was going to pass, and he is saying he wanted to do it with dignity, but the little bit that I know about it, that's kind of confusing for me. So I'm asking your dad to explain it. Okay. It's actually that simple. He wanted to do it on his own terms because of his medical stuff. He also had issues with suicidal ideation forever. And then it was like, once he got this medical diagnosis, it was like, well, guess I made up my mind finally after, 50 plus years or 60 years or whatever, so there's this other, oh, got a lot of spirits here. Lots of spirits going on here.
Who's stepping up now?
Actually, Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, okay.
You know who he is?
Not so well.
So he was, I don't know if I'm asking him to explain himself. He was a traveler, he's saying.
Okay.
So he was a food expert.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he committed suicide and took life into his own hands. But you see what you see on TV, but he had a lot of stuff going on internally, a lot of struggle going on internally, a lot of issues with I don't know if he had an ex-wife. There was the way that he was processing his life, it was like, I'm done. Too many people want too many things from me. I want to do it. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm asking him if he's had suicidal ideation, like before he made that step. He says, if you would ask me, I would have said no. But he says, in hindsight, yes. Yes, it did. He's saying that he didn't really care in the moment, if there was an afterlife. He just wanted a break, wanted it to be done. So for him in his afterlife, when he passed, it was boom, lights out. There was a time that it was boom, lights out. And then I'm hearing from him what I hear very commonly from spirits, who, I'm not saying he was an atheist. It was just more like he wanted to be left alone for a minute. And then when he was ready, then that's when his guides were there. I think his dad had crossed too or something here, because there was this man that greeted him. That was a family member, so it could have been his father. But there was a bigger picture with his whole suicide. And at the time there was also, there was Kate Spade that happened around that same time too. It was like this influx of it bringing for the bigger picture a mental health awareness issue here. So because you're not, Eric stepping back and told you I got lots of people here right now. He's saying it's not just about you, it's about the collective and about the lessons for the collective. And sometimes you choose to go on this life path and end in this way. Other times you end it that way and you could have had other options. And then that is where you have a hard time with it. And you go through grief counseling up in heaven, and you go through these classes, and you go through periods of like, oh, that could have been my life. Like, what? But then they help you work through it. So it's just, we're so lucky that we have the whole spirit world there that really pushes for us and helps us. And sometimes they're screaming at us not to do it, and we can't hear ourselves, let alone them.
Now I remember, like, when Anthony Bourdain died, Paula was my partner Paula, she was in shock because she actually followed him, and she couldn't believe it. She couldn't understand why, because he seemed so full of life, so energetic, so driven and alive. Sometimes it's interesting.
My God is stepping in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying you don't realize how short your life is until you see how short your life is. And it's just like you get the shot to just have this moment, and yeah, you can come back, and yeah, you can do it again here on another planet, whatever. He's saying, but when you see it from our view, he's like, he says it takes your breath away. It just takes your breath away when you see it all, like we're in the Matrix, like how we all affect and how we all interact, and you'll never realize it until you're not here. And then when you're not here, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah. I feel like in today's day and age, we take emotional pain and mental pain as if it's the norm. Like we live through it like that's our normal. And it's not. Like you wouldn't be in physical pain thinking that that's normal. I'll just cope with it for the rest of my life. But with mental and emotional, we do that. And I feel like that's why suicides are so like an epidemic right now, because we're not dealing with that pain. We're not dealing with that mental, emotional trauma. And it builds up to such a crescendo that it's like my only option is that, when we're going through these emotional, mental suffering, basically, we're not taught how to move through that. So do they have any advice from the spirit world on how can we move through these things instead of being stuck in them and that becoming our reality?
Okay, so there's two versions of this. One of it I don't like, but I'm going to say because it's what they're saying and it's reality, which is that sometimes it is not, I'm not promoting this, okay? But
Sure.
sometimes it's people's soul contract, and you let it go and you let it be free because it needs to be, is what my God is saying right now. And then there's times where you just can't accept your own decisions. And that limits you with the levels of dimension that you proceed into and your interactions with those things. Nobody stops you. There's no gatekeeper that's like, you can't go to the next level, like a video game. It's more your own limiting belief system, your own self-harm, your own ability to be able to rise up against the conflict of it. But what's so great is that we have source energy and we have so much love and beings of peace, and he's bringing up Jesus, he's bringing up our archangels, he's bringing up our guides, our ancestors, our loved ones. There is, when you're ready to face it, there are people that are immediately, and they're there. You just might not be able to see them yet because you're not, he says, you're not connectively there.
When you're in such a deep, dense, dark place, sometimes the help you need to release that trauma, for example, or to heal your body is right there, let's say on YouTube, on the internet. But because you're not like a match to it, you can't find it. And it's like it doesn't exist. Like it's not, the help doesn't exist, but it's there. You just can't reach it in that moment. Is that accurate?
That is partially accurate, because you also have to be in a place in your mind that you want to be able to change it and you want to be able to look for it, he's saying.
That's right.
So it's like with therapy, unless you're willing to want and have that drive to change yourself and see your wrongs yourself, unless you're willing to put your own ego aside and stop. I hate saying this because this is not at all what I'm trying to sound like, but stop playing the victim. Okay. And that's not my fault. I'm channeling this. You have to be able to put that aside to be able to take the advice that you're going to be given to be able to make that change. And sometimes these advice givers are not all, they don't know exactly everything perfectly about what's going to fix you and how it's going to fix you. There's all these technologies and ideas out there, and a lot of it is mental health issues that are just go uncategorized that are happening, hormonal changes in your body, but it's just bipolarism. He's bringing up just so many schizophrenia, so many different things that are going on with you. Sometimes it can be a manic episode that can happen like that, like you're perfectly sober, and next thing you know, it's like you lose it,
And I guess that the way we live our lives doesn't contribute to health and well-being so much. Like the way we're so sun deprived, the way we don't eat well, the way we're not able to connect with each other and have tribal like connections with each other. Like all of that makes life even denser and darker.
My guide is bringing up throughout history, though, if you look at it throughout entire world history. Okay, yes, we had COVID, and that whole situation that happened. But then you got to look at smallpox. You got to look at polio. You got to look at, he's even bringing it back to medieval times with the Black Plague. There's been so many times in the history of humanity as a whole that we've had to go through these times of separation. So you can categorize it and you can't, because it's like every generation has its thing, that there's stuff. It's really about, he says, finding the balance, in your mind to determine that you're making the decision to help create your own cause and effect. So for every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. Oh, isn't that Newton's law? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
He's saying it's a matter of how you react to it and how you choose to. Okay, Dakota's stepping back in. She's saying it's a matter of how you choose to recognize it. You can either put the blinders on and not recognize it and not want to fix it, and which happens a lot, because now you've gone too far with it. Like you can't see. It's like you have blinders on. And she's saying, and that's where lots of times it really is helpful to not self-isolate, but you can't help it. She's saying she used to do that too. She used to do that too. She's telling me I do that.
Me
I
too.
that too. The problem here is my guides are saying, and they're almost talking in unison, is that they are speaking in unison, is that there always is an option other than making it a permanent problem that is now a forever resolution. Because you can't come back and do it again. You can't come back and do it again as you in this moment, as you right now. That is very true. You cannot come back and do it again as you right now. You can reincarnate, as somebody else.
Why is that so important? Like, why is being who we are right now in this moment, why is that important?
Oh gosh. They're spinning it on you, Sadie.
Tell me.
They want you to answer that question.
Seriously?
Yep.
You
do this to me all the time. It's your turn.
I don't know. I guess because it's the only version of me that I can be in this moment, and it's never gonna be the same again. So it's like this unique thing that I'm experiencing. It's never gonna be like this ever again. And maybe that's something I wanted to experience. I don't know.
Precisely.
Oh, that was a good answer.
And everybody has to ask themselves that question, my guides are saying. And I'm saying that too, not just my guides. Everybody has to ask themselves that question at one point. I decided one day, I just made the decision that I wanted to be here. So deep diving into why do I want to be here instead of why don't I want to be here? that's very tricky, because it's like, especially when you're in that bad place, why do I want to be here?
Mm.
You know, and it can't always be for somebody else. I have a son.
Yeah.
Being so empathic and being a medium and developing this is my medicine. This is, honest to God, my medicine. This is what I do to keep myself emotionally balanced, to be able to keep that connection with spirit, so that way I can be constantly reminded, like, you get this shot to be Abbie in this moment, this day, this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I can say for me, it was a little bit different. I was also suicidal like most of my life. And for me, it wasn't so much a decision that I made, but it was more that I needed help getting out of a PTSD stuck kind of place. And magic mushrooms were my medicine, literal medicine. And I don't think I would be where I am today if it wasn't for that. I know it's not right for everyone, but it is what saved me from that really stuck place that no therapist could get me out of, because I was like so deep in it with my whole brain, my whole mind. Another thing that helps me is that, you know, I have to ask myself when I'm in pain, like, how can I just relieve this right now? I'm not talking physical, but I'm talking emotional and mental pain. Like, I am in pain right now. And in that moment, I need relief. So, what is going to bring me relief? Not joy, not happiness, like, not elation, literal relief. And if that's like rotting in bed all day on TikTok, I'm good with that, because that's what's keeping me alive right now. And that's good enough for me. You know what I mean?
So, my guides are saying it's about reflecting on the patterns of your life and the fact that there are waves in it, that there's hills and valleys. And they're saying that, really, instead of putting your energy, people, into thinking about how bad it is and everything wrong with you, think about, do the best you can. My guides are saying this is where the power of prayer is so relevant and so important, and how answers do come to you. And that's where you ask for signs. And you're such an individual, my guide is saying, that you will find a pattern that you will recognize to be helpful for you. No matter what, you're going to be okay. No matter what, you're going to a plane of existence where you are so loved. Whether or not you pass into that plane of existence and are willing to allow that love, that's where it can get tricky. They will shower you with it. They will do everything they can for you with it. They're saying it's a matter of your perspective.
Well, I guess that's a good place to end it, actually. I think there was some, good messages that came through. If there's a one last message that wants to come through, you can, feel free to say it now.
What is telling all of her friends how much she appreciates them, and her family, how much she loves them, and how, again, sorry she is that all of this happened. But she wants to let you know, she's showing me a butterfly. And she wants to let you know that she is flying free. She now knows her purpose. She now has better understanding, and she is coping with things, and she's having fun with some friends up there. She's actually she's dying to say how much she loves you all. And she's saying that she wishes that she got to be here longer, but she knows why she couldn't. And her next lifetime, she'll know better.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna leave in the description some links of videos that have helped me when I was going through like PTSD and the worst of it. The one person that comes to mind is Gabor Mate. He's a doctor, he's Canadian. He helped me so much to get past that being stuck in the trauma. And so I'll leave a link for him below.
Eric's showing me like this magic key, right? That everybody has their own magic key. It's a matter of developing your coping mechanisms to figure out what coping mechanism and magic key that is. So it's like he's saying it's just nearly impossible to just give a broad, like, this is what you do to fix it.
Yeah, I know. But I'm gonna put it anyway in case it helps, even if it helps one person, at least it's something. So thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode. If you'd like a private reading with Abbie, I'll put all of her information down below, and she also does mediumship classes if you'd like to get in touch with your own inner psychic medium, because I guess everybody has some of these skills. You can develop them if you choose to. And we'll see you in the next episode. And leave down in the comments if you have any suggestions for topics and themes. We'll definitely listen to your suggestions. So see you next time. Bye.
Bye.